Acura. Luxury begins with the new 8-speed dual-clutch 2016 Acura ILX. Catch it if you can.
Welcome back to Washington, D.C. This is the ninth portion of a day-night doubleheader. The Blue Jays lost to the Nationals 2-0. In Game 1, it was the first time they had been shut out all year. John Gibbons' Blue Jays were the last team in the majors to be shut out this season. Jordan Zimmerman and Drew Storen combined on the 6-hit shutout. And the Blue Jays will try to bounce back here in Game 2. Let's take a look at the lineup. Jose Reyes, Josh Donaldson, top two in the order, and then Jose Bautista in right field. His career numbers against Max Scherzer, the starter for the Nationals, is impressive. 9 for 17 with 5 extra base hits. And then 2 spots down, Chris Colabello continues to hit the ball well. He's got a 12-game hit streak after going 1 for 4 in the opener. 368 average during that hit streak, 3 homers and 8 RBIs. And they will face Max Scherzer, who makes his 8th career start against the Blue Jays.
Scherzer signed that big 7-year contract with Washington back in January. This is his 11th start as a National, and faces the Blue Jays for the 8th time in his career, and he's been great against them. Undefeated 4-0 with a 168 earned run average. He's given up 9 earned runs to the Blue Jays in 48 1/3 innings. He has never allowed more than 2 earned runs in a start against Toronto.
Here's the first pitch of the game. It's up and away for a ball, and we are underway. Jose Reyes went 0 for 4 in Game 1. Scherzer will come right at you. He is very similar to what we saw in Game 1 with Jordan Zimmerman.
Yeah, here it is. Let's see how far you can hit it. See if you can do anything with it. He's a little bit different, Scherzer, where he throws almost sidearm. Very tough to pick up.
Well, he's got a fluid delivery and a very repeatable delivery, and it is different than Zimmerman's. There's no question about that. There's that good changeup, a trademark of Max Scherzer's. First strikeout of the evening. Let's take a look at the defense. A little bit different look for the Nationals in the outfit. It's Clint Robinson, Michael Taylor, and Bryce Harper from left to right in the outfield. YUNEL ESCOBAR, the former Blue Jay, at third. Desmond and Espinosa up the middle. Tyler Moore at first, and Jose Lobaton, a switch hitter, behind the plate for Max Scherzer.
Ryan Zimmerman had started every game for the Nationals at first base this year, so he gets the day off. First start of the season for Moore. Tyler Moore gets the start at first base. 35 in his career at first base.
Josh Donaldson goes after that first fastball he sees. Donaldson is 1 for 8 going up against Max Scherzer. Pretty good pitch, just low below that bottom strike zone.
Pretty good eye right there by Donaldson. If he takes it, it's a ball. That is right on the corner.
Here's that little slider. Scherzer will throw you an assortment of pitches, and he has really blossomed after his first year in Detroit, which was 2010, in which he went 12-11. The next 4 years for the Tigers, he was 70-24.
You know what makes him so tough, on top of the great stuff that he has, you said that, he studies the hitters, he finds weaknesses. On top of the great stuff, he's a good pitcher. He's got an assortment of ways to get you out, and he's got great command, great control.
Now, he was around good pitchers in Detroit, including Verlander, and last year David Price. Pfister, of course, who's his teammate now here in Washington, currently on a disabled list. Outside at 96. He has the ability to take his fastball from 91-92 up to 96-97.
Yeah, when he needs a little bit extra on that fastball, he can reach back and find it. But he does his homework, studies the hitters.
And he loses Donaldson there with a breaking ball. 1-out walk.
Let's take a little closer look at tonight's starter for the Washington Nationals. Max Scherzer, the fastball. You can see it at 93.5, but you're right, he can dial it up to 96 if he needs to, 97. Slider, changeup is excellent. He throws it from that sidearm type of delivery, and he'll throw it with 2 strikes a lot. Curveball and a cutter at times. So he's got a lot of things that he can throw up there, and he doesn't fall into one pattern.
Jose Bautista helped the cut on the first pitch. Bautista in game 1 was 1 for 4. We mentioned his numbers against Scherzer, 9 for 17. That's a .529 average against Max Scherzer. Couple of hittable pitches for Bautista, just a little bit off.
You know, I think Jordan Zimmerman did the same thing against the Blue Jays in game number 1. He threw a lot of high strikes right at the letters, and the Blue Jays hit a lot of balls in the air. 13 fly ball outs or pop outs by the Blue Jays in game number 1. Scherzer's going to do the same thing. He's going to pound you up with that fastball.
Bautista granted time just before Scherzer was ready to deliver the pitch. Well, he took a long time before he delivered that pitch, and you know, Scherzer knows Bautista well, and obviously Jose's had a lot of success against him. It may be a case where he's trying to mess up the timing of Bautista.
I think you're absolutely right. He is doing that on purpose, holding it for a long time. You see Jose set up, and he really leans back on that back leg. You hold that, you mess up the timing of that hitter.
Ball is hit into the air in center. Michael Taylor backs up and makes the catch. Bautista's retired. That's 2 down. And we had talked about the leg kick and how timing is so important to Donaldson and Bautista because of that leg kick. You got to believe that Scherzer's open to try anything and trying to get Bautista out.
Let me tell you something. As a hitter, sitting up there as the pitcher holds the ball can be very nerve-wracking. You're sitting there waiting, and you're trying to stay smooth, and now you're sitting there and you're waiting. You might tense up just a little bit. It's almost like a base runner at first base, a base stealer, where the pitcher holds the ball a long time.
Catcher Russell Martin batting cleanup. In case you've just joined us, the news is that Edwin Encarnacion, who did not start in game 1 and is not starting in game 2, is dealing with a leg problem. We have not been given any more information that the leg has been bothering him. He played every game prior to not starting in game 1 this afternoon. Russell Martin came on as a pinch hitter and had just a 1 at bat. He grounded into a 4-6-3 double play in game 1 to end the 7th inning. It's the best opportunity for the Blue Jays to get back in the game right there.
The only opportunity really for the Blue Jays, that was 1 inning where they have multiple runners on base. That only happened 1 other time, where they had multiple runners on base. In that game, that's how dominant the pitching was.
The appeal down to the first base umpire. Vic Garapazza is turned down. 1-2 to Russell Martin. It is a blustery night and really unusual for second day of June. Martin fouls that pitch back. The Blue Jays got off to a 4-2 start on the road this season through New York and Baltimore, and everything looked rosy. But since then, in the last 21 games on the road, the Blue Jays have gone 5-16.
And you can't really just point to one problem. It's been a little bit of everything for John Gibbons' team. Hitting at times, pitching at times, fielding at times. It's just been a rough stretch for the Blue Jays on the road.
Inside. Now it's 2-2. They talk about the last 21 games on the road. You look at the record, and then it's reflected in the ERA. They haven't hit much on the road. They have been outscored by 24 runs and out-homered by 5.
Outscored by 24 in 21 games. John Gibbons has said that we're not getting blown out and we're not giving away games. We're just getting beat.
There's a deep drive to left field. And that ball is going to hook foul as Martin got out in front of it.
Looked like an off-speed pitch right there from Scherzer. Right now, he doesn't have that feel for that slider. He has hung a couple sliders. He has missed his spots a couple of times here in the first inning.
Outside, full count.
Oh, they have made him work too. 21 pitches already here in the first inning against Scherzer. And the good ones, it takes them a while at times to get it going. So,
first inning seemed to be a challenge.
Yep.
Saw Colabello on deck. Donaldson will be off on the pitch. There goes Donaldson. Martin hits it to Hopper to third. Escobar has to throw across the diamond, and he pulls the first baseman off the bag. Boy, he nonchalanted it and threw himself right into an air. Donaldson alertly goes all the way to third. Russell Martin's aboard on the air by Escobar, his second air of the season.
Told you in the first game that they have committed now 37 errors. Only the Cubs and the Milwaukee Brewers have committed more errors than the Washington Nationals. Watch how he gets underneath this ball instead of staying on top of it. Gets underneath it and he pulls more off the bag to keep the inning going. Escobar is normally right over the top with his throws. Now he's used to throwing from the left side of the diamond. He's a shortstop. That time a little nonchalant. The Blue Jays now have to take advantage of it.
Here's Colabello. Extended his hit streak to 12 straight with a base hit in game one.
You can eliminate that slider right now from Scherzer. He's just not spinning it up there. Doesn't have the feel for it.
Narrow your focus. Look for the heater. Colabello 364 for the season. Chased one down and away. Colabello is 0 for 3 up against Scherzer. It's the only time he faced him get 3 at bats. Been a good clutch hitter for the Jays. 8 for 17 with 10 ribbies.
Stays in the middle of the diamond. I asked him about that and he said, you know, I'm good when I'm going right back through the middle. I'm not thinking about trying to pull the ball.
Scherzer trying to strand a pair here in the first, and Colabello would love to deliver with 2 outs. Scherzer has thrown 25 pitches in the opening frame.
He's a big, strong guy, and he can go a long way. 25 in the first inning. That eliminates innings at the end of the game.
Colabello strikes out Scherzer with a couple of strikeouts. The Blue Jays leave a pair in their half of the first. Marco Estrada will come on to take on the Nets. Lead in the National League East Division. Let's take a look at their lineup. Top of the order, the former Blue Jay, YUNEL Escobar. He's at third base, and his last 21 games, he's been swinging a hot bat, .337 average with 5 RBIs, and then in the third spot. Bryce Harper, the right fielder, leads the major leagues with 14 home runs and 36 RBIs since April 24th. He has really been hot. He was a two-time NL Player of the Week in the month of May.
And wouldn't you know, he got the big base hit for the Nationals in game number 1. Marco Estrada will make his 6th start for the Blue Jays after 6 relief appearances. He's pitching better, getting stronger in the rotation for the Blue Jays. Back-to-back starts now for Marco of 7 innings. That's the first time he has done that since September of 2013. Pretty good ERA, but a losing record. The Blue Jays just haven't been able to score any runs for him.
The Jays are 0-5 in Estrada's previous 6 starts. And obviously they need a win. Trying to split the doubleheader here this afternoon. YUNEL Escobar did not factor in that error. Didn't really matter in top half of the inning. He reached base 3 times in game 1. Escobar was 2 for 3 with a walk. He scored a run in the 5th. He scored the 2nd run, driven in by the sacrifice fly by Ryan Zimmerman. There's a changeup. It's upstairs.
Escobar did some leading off when he was with the Blue Jays after they traded for him from the Atlanta Braves, so this is nothing new for him. Bernard Span normally would be in the leadoff position for the Nationals, but he is out with an injury.
Escobar hits it high in the air. Danny Valencia is in left field. Valencia is there. Escobar is retired. Let's take a look at the rest of the defense. Behind Marco Estrada. It is Valencia in left field. Kevin Pillar back in center, and Jose Bautista in right. On the infield, Josh Donaldson makes his 50th start at third. Reyes is at shortstop. Munenori Kawasaki starting for just the 3rd time at second. Colabello's at first, and Russ Martin's behind the plate. This is Ian Desmond, the shortstop.
You mentioned Edwin Encarnacion with the leg injury, so Chris Colabello will get the start. Blue Jays have used 4 different first basemen this year. This is the first start for Chris at first base. He's actually made more starts in the outfield in his career than at first base. 51 starts in the outfield. This is his 46th start at first.
The last time he started at first base was last August at Oakland for the Minnesota Twins. There's a good strike with the fastball. 1-2 to the Nationals shortstop.
Well, that's where Marco's got to live, right there, right on the corner, down and away to the right-handers, and set up that changeup.
Good spot, down and away. You can't beat that. Good strikeout for Estrada. 2 down here in the bottom of the 1st.
It looked like Ian Desmond was thinking along the changeup after the fastball. Russell Martin and Marco Estrada changed up on him, threw him a fastball, and it's right on the corner. Good pitch.
We mentioned Estrada had been drafted by the Nationals in 2005. He was a 6th round pick at Long Beach State. He appeared with the Nationals 2 different seasons, a total of just 15 games. Bryce Harper feeded off the end of the bat. Bryce Harper leads the majors in RBIs. 44. He had that RBI, the game winner in game 1. 18 homers, 44 RBIs.
Blue Jays had a chance to walk him. First base was open, so I went back and looked. He leads the team in intentional walks. He has 6 of them. So other teams just take the bat right out of his hand and try and make the guy behind him beat him.
No. R.A. Dickey had handled him easily in his first 2 at-bats. But boy, he took a different approach up there with a chance to drive in a run. He actually had a chance to drive in 2. You know, Escobar had a chance to score from second on the base hit to center, but stopped at third.
Yeah, didn't get a good break. You can see the pre-movement to the swing in Bryce Harper. Really loads up on that back leg and then swings the bat.
A little flare into center field. That's going to drop for a base hit. A 2-strike base hit for Bryce Harper. He's not only just power hitter, he's hitting .325 at the start of this game.
This one fights off the fastball from Marco and just dumps it into center field. You can see they're playing the shift, but he hits it where nobody could catch that one.
Last 15 games, a .400 average for Harper. This is Tyler Moore. He's at first base in the second game. Played in left field in game 1, went 1 for 4.
Tyler Moore knows all about the Blue Jays. His first big league home run against the Blue Jays, if you remember that, back at Rogers Center the last time the Nationals were there.
It's going to reach the seats down the right side. A big foul pop. The Blue Jays did some roster shuffling in between games. They sent Josh Tolley back to AAA Buffalo and activated Deanna Navarre, the switch hitting catcher. He is active on the roster, and they brought up Scott Copeland also as the 26th man in second game of this doubleheader. There's that good Estrada changeup.
And okay, so you say the 26th man. Why can you have a 26th man today? If there is a rainout, you're allowed to add a player. If the game is rescheduled within 48 hours of the rainout, the Blue Jays were able to add that player, another pitcher. As you see, Deanna Navarro just getting here this afternoon for the ball game.
Two and two now to Tyler Moore. Bryce Harper's at first base. He had a 2-out single to center. This is popped up. Kawasaki backing up onto the outfield grass. He makes the catch. The inning is over. The 2-out single didn't hurt. We played an inning here in Washington. There's no score. Drafted by the Arizona Diamondbacks, and you look at his road to the Nationals. The Diamondbacks drafted him in the first round of 2006. He was 11th player overall. Then he went to Detroit, and things really turned around for him. He won the Cy Young in 13, going 21-3, and then signed a lucrative 7-year contract with the Nationals to be their ace pitcher in this very good pitching staff.
There are his career numbers at 8 seasons, 97-53. For Scherzer, as that ball is skied to center field.
Michael Taylor is back at the warning track, and Manny Valencia gave it a ride and took the center fielder all the way to the 402 mark. We talk about Max Scherzer and his development, and he has blossomed. When you look at his first 4 seasons, just a game over 500, but boy, he took off in his last 4 years in Detroit.
Big time. There are the numbers right there. Arizona got rid of him. They thought that with that type of delivery he was going to hurt his arm, but he has proved that he is very valuable and very durable. He has made 30 starts or more over the last 6 seasons. I think the development of his changeup since he got to Detroit, putting that in the arsenal, has really made him an elite pitcher.
Munenori Kawasaki pops it into shallow left field. Then Robinson gets there. 2 quick outs for Scherzer here in the second.
I don't recall him throwing as many changeups when he was early. He was fireballing when he was with Arizona. Maybe that's the effect of Justin Verlander when he went to Detroit.
Yeah, I think also that, and the fact that he was pitching in the American League. You just can't bull your way through the lineups. He had to come up with an off-speed pitch, and he's developed one of the best to complement that great fastball. 2 down now for Kevin Pillar. Pillar trying to go through some mechanical adjustments at the plate, trying to get his front foot down quickly. And it's going to be an ongoing process. And he has worked hard with Brooke Jacoby and Eric Owens, the hitting coaches.
Like any player that goes through a rough time, they get a little anxious at the plate. They start over swinging and swinging at pitches off the plate as that ball is hit down the right field line out of play. I think the same thing can be said for Kevin. He's just a little bit anxious, jumping out there, trying to hit everything before the pitcher lets go of the ball. Early in the year, he's a little bit more disciplined and made the pitcher come to him.
3-1 to Kevin Pillar. Of course, the pitcher's spot is next in the National League Park, and obviously playing under National League rules. Ooh, a close pitch called a strike. Pillar thought it was off the plate inside. Brian Knight calls it for a strike, and looked like it ran off the plate inside.
And when you're struggling like that, those kind of pitches always seem to go against you. You got to forget about it.
Kevin Pillar hits it deep to left field. This ball is back, and gone. Kevin Pillar is glad that was strike 2 and not ball 4.
And he did forget about it. Why walk when you can go deep? Right there, that looks like his home run that he had when the ball club was in Minnesota. Pitch that was in, and he pulled it to left field. Did that against Kyle Gibson. That time 3-1. They challenged him again with the pitcher on deck, and Pillar made him pay.
It's only the 4th home run that Scherzer has allowed this season. It's the 3rd home run for Pillar and gives the Blue Jays a 1-0 lead.
Tried to two-seam that ball. It stays on the inner half, and Pillar turns on it. That away.
Marco Estrada shoots it into right. Estrada, pitching for the Nationals and the Brewers, has been a hitter before. He comes in with a 143 career average, but gets a base hit and turns the lineup over.
He hit when he was with the Brewers. I don't know if this one hurt his hand. Looked like he might have got jammed a little bit. He shoots it to right field.
So now the bat boy is running out the pitcher's jacket. Something that we never see in the American League because pitchers don't hit, obviously, but this is standard practice.
And it's a cool night. That's just to keep that pitching arm warm as you make your way around the bases.
So the Blue Jays have a 1-0 lead. Back to the top of the order, Jose Reyes. Ball and a strike to Reyes, the switch hitter.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if Jose Reyes can yank a ball to right center field, he can run for days. They play him the other way, which is surprising. Left fielder Robinson is right on the line. There's a big gap in right center field.
This is popped into shallow center field. The shortstop Desmond is back, and the inning is over. But the Blue Jays jump out in front. Kevin Pillar in the 8th spot, back in the lineup in center. It's a 3-2 fastball over the wall in left, his 3rd home run of the season. Max Scherzer's 4th allowed. 1-0 Blue Jays.
log on to My Blue Jays and enter the code MBJ9748 to earn My Blue Jays points just for watching the broadcast. The entry box can be found on your My Blue Jays homepage. The code must be entered by 11:59 tonight. Look for a new code tomorrow. Buck?
It's a great idea, Barry, and make sure you log on. You're going to be a loyal Blue Jay watcher. Make sure you log on to mybluejays.com.
Well, we have a minute. Let's take a look at the scouting report for Marco Estrada, the starter for the Blue Jays tonight. He's working that fastball 46% of the time. It's 90, 91 miles an hour, but it makes it very effective when he uses that changeup. He uses it 36% of the time. It's one of the best changeups, I think, in baseball. He throws it with great conviction and great arm action. His breaking ball, I think, especially in his last start, shows that it's starting to come around just a little bit more when he breaks that curveball off and then mix in a cutter every now and then. Estrada's getting stronger and stronger. Again, 7 innings in his last 2 starts for the Blue Jays.
Pitching with the lead now. Click Robinson in left field. Change up, down and away. It's 2-0. Now 3-0. Everything in the same spot away off the plate.
That's when you've got to make that adjustment. A couple of change ups that rolled off the end of his fingers and out of the strike zone. There you go.
The leadoff walk here in the bottom of the second. Blue Jays score a run in the top half of the inning, and then first batter reaches on ball 4. Danny Espinosa, the second baseman. Kawasaki's playing at second base. He is playing poor. You see Reyes shaded up the middle against Espinosa. There's a drive to deep center field. Pilar has room just in front of the warning track. He makes the catch, gets it back in quickly, and Robinson returns to first.
You know, this is a big yard. If you could command and keep that ball in the middle of the diamond and get fly balls, it's not going to leave. Pilar roaming in center field. He's got a lot of room to roam out there. That ball was hit pretty hard, but it didn't make the warning track.
This is the catcher starting in game 2 of this day-night doubleheader, Jose Lobato, formerly of the Rays. We've seen him for the Rays.
We've seen enough of him with the Rays. Remember that series we were down there and he had a couple of walk-off hits against the Blue Jays?
That he did. Had a couple of big series against him. Lobato, a home run and 8 RBIs in just 17 games against the Blue Jays. There's a drive toward right. Bautista on the run. He'll get there and makes the catch. There's the value of Jose Bautista.
You know, I thought we saw it in the first game. He robbed a player of a hit in game 1. Such a good outfielder. You can tell the difference right away when a guy who's out there who's a gold glove type of fielder like Bautista is. The breaks he gets on the ball, his jumps, and then his tracking of the baseball. He knew exactly where that ball was going to come down and ran right to that spot. When it left the bat, it looked like it was extra bases. Marco Estrada was loving that as Bautista makes a good play.
We have seen plenty of those drives fall untouched or off a player's glove in right field since Bautista was not available in right. This is Michael Taylor, the number 8 hitter, heading in front of the pitcher. Taylor went 1 for 4 and struck out 3 times in game 1. Had all sorts of trouble with the knuckleballer.
Didn't look very comfortable against RA in that knuckleball in game 1.
And we point out in this situation, Taylor batting with 2 outs in the 8th spot. You'd love to get him out. Have the pitcher leading off the next inning. Max Scherzer on deck.
Then you can nibble a little bit, can't you? You nibble against these guys, see if they swing at pitches just off the plate, knowing that if you miss them, you end up walking to get the pitcher, or do you go ahead and attack this guy?
I think you attack him to get him out and plan on having the pitcher start the next inning.
Ideally, that's exactly what you want to do. You want to get him out, but you don't want to give into him either.
Working him away. It's a full count, 2 outs. Clint Robinson at first base. Scherzer 5 for 25 this season. And there goes the runner. Cut on and missed. Taylor strikes out. That ends the inning. The leadoff walk did not hurt. He'll go to the 3rd. Blue Jays have a 1-0 lead. Day, and among the WAR leaders, Bryce Harper of the Nationals, Josh Donaldson of the Blue Jays, 1st and 2nd, ahead of Jason Kipnis of the Indians. And these are 2 of the best hitters in baseball.
It's a true gauge, I think, of the total value of a player, and it takes into consideration offensive numbers and defensive metrics to show you the type of baseball player you are. And these are 2 of the best in the game right here. They're great baseball players. You watch them play the game and the instincts that they show out on the field. Those are the 2 highest in all of baseball.
Yeah, and it's not just hitting, obviously. It's their defensive contributions as well. Here is Donaldson. Scherzer misses with the first pitch. Jason Kipnis is 3rd on that list, and what a month of May he had. Kipnis had 51 hits in the month of May. Oh, Donaldson got a hanger.
Boy, remember we told you in the 1st inning, it just doesn't look like Max Scherzer has that slider just yet, where it's really bending and he's throwing it where he wants to. That time he missed his spot and got away with a hanging breaking ball. Donaldson hasn't missed too many of those lately.
No, he hasn't, especially upstairs. We showed you his last 6 home runs were all above the belt. He had a good look at that pitch, thought it was off the plate. Scherzer had a ball and 2 strikes. Base hit right field. Donaldson stayed back, used his hands, and strokes it into right.
Save during Canada's Caller Expert Sale. Only at Home Hardware and Building Center locations. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
We are in Washington. That is the Kennedy Center, where they have all those great awards ceremonies. This is Jose Bautista, but first Scherzer will go to third, and Donaldson knows all about Scherzer. He does not like to throw to first base, and these two have played in the playoffs the last few years, Oakland and Detroit respectively.
Do him a lob over there at first base.
And Josh almost reached out to catch it. Bautista pops it high in the air into center field. Taylor is there. Bautista's retired, 1 out. We mentioned Donaldson and Harper having the highest WAR, and Kipnis is third in baseball. He had 51 hits in the month of May. That's just the third Cleveland Indian hitter to have 50 hits in a month over the last 25 years. Miguel Delaunay and Pat Tabler had 50 hits in a month.
When?
August of '86.
Really?
You were 50 for 108.
Is that good?
That's pretty good. 463 average for the month.
And you know what that got me the next month? Put me on the bench.
Put you on the bench. That's right.
Say, hey, you had a good year.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to let somebody else play now.
Oh, man. That didn't set too well, did it?
I said thanks. Appreciate that.
50 hits in a month.
50 hits. Well, I didn't know that.
That's what we're here for, Pat. Keep you up to date on your career. Russell Martin shoots it into right. Harper plays a deep right field, and he gets there easily. 2 down now. There were years that I didn't have 50 hits.
Come on. Come on.
You had 50 hits in a month. Just think about it. 30 days. 50 hits, a ton of hits.
That is, you know, when we were talking about Jason Kipnis last month and we were following all the hits that he was getting, then when you told me that I had 50 hits, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a big month. We were there when Kipnis got started. He had a home run off Mark Burley to get everything going.
We got him right, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, maybe Terry Francona deserves some credit because he put him in the leadoff spot. Colabella hits it off the end of the bat. A quick inning for Scherzer. Donaldson gets the leadoff single. Blue Jays get nothing more. Jays have stranded 4 through 3 innings, but lead at 1-0.
Presented by Acura. Luxury begins with the new 8-speed dual-clutch 2016 Acura ILX. Catch it if you can.
Beautiful Nationals Park. It opened in March of 2008, and it has really been a great ballpark. Nationals certainly have enjoyed playing. They've gotten better and better with every year they have played here.
They just keep winning. They've built a great organization. 10 years now they've been here in Washington. Hard to believe.
This is the pitcher. Max Scherzer goes after the first pitch. Estrada singled off of Scherzer in his at bat. That was in the second inning after Pilar hit a home run. So Estrada throws him a curveball. Pitchers hate to give up hits to other pitchers.
Yeah, is there an etiquette where pitchers pitching to other pitchers? Is there an etiquette? You throw them fastballs, you give them a couple of chances to get a hit, and then you throw a breaking ball with 2 strikes?
Yeah, I think that's the standard procedure. When I was playing prior to the DH, that was always the thing. You know, just throw him a fastball down and away. If he wants to hit it, fine, but don't embarrass him. But you want to get him out.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to get him out. And you get the 2 strikes and say, okay, hey, all right, I've given you a chance here.
Yeah, now you're mine.
Yeah, it's over. Go sit down.
Scherzer hits it down the right side. Scherzer grew up in St. Louis and went to University of Missouri in Columbia. He's always kind of been like a National League guy, and here he is with the Nationals now as their #1 pitcher.
And he's familiar with the National League. I played with Arizona for the first couple of years in the big leagues before he went to Detroit in that big trade. Now back in the National League.
That was quite a trade. It was a 3-team trade. It included the Yankees, Detroit, and Arizona.
Everybody got what they wanted out of that trade.
There's quite a battle going on now, and you've got to think that, okay, Estrada said, okay, now I'm going to throw you a hook.
Yeah, well, it's been an 8-pitch at bat, and you want to do that pretty quickly. Get him in and get him out. This is pitch number 9. He's got to throw him a breaking ball or his bread and butter pitch, the changeup.
They threw him a changeup, and now it's a full count. And you get fans getting into this. Escobar, the leadoff man, will be next. Kawasaki in the outfield gets to his feet just in time to throw Scherzer out. And extended it back for Max Scherzer, and you can hear the crowd appreciative of the effort.
Very appreciative. A 10-pitch at bat as he piles that on Marco Estrada. Kawasaki was playing him then in the hole after it got to 3-2, got the fastball. You can see him on the outfield grass. Now he doesn't panic. He takes his time. He knows it's the pitcher. Take your time, make a good throw, get the out. First out of the inning. Nice play by Kawasaki.
1 down, back to the top of the order, the leadoff man, YUNEL Escobar.
He loves that first pitch fastball, so be careful.
Throw him a first pitch changeup.
You know, that's Russell Martin going over the game plans and studying the opposition with Marco, understanding what they have to do to try and get these guys out. He knows he likes to jump on that first pitch, especially after a 10-pitch at bat to the pitcher. So he throws him a changeup.
There's a liner into center. Pilar got a good read off the bat. Makes a running catch about chest high. 2 down. Boy, that pitcher spot leading off an inning is really valuable. It shortens the entire process. This time, of course, it took 10 pitches to retire Scherzer, but now you've got 2 outs and nobody on.
Yeah, what a difference. We were talking about that in Minnesota, the importance of getting that first batter of an inning when Drew Hutchison was on the mound, and he did such a good job of that in that last start. But how about facing that pitcher all the time, like that first batter of an inning? Get him out of the way. You only need 2 outs then to finish off the inning. It makes life a lot easier.
This is Ian Desmond, the shortstop. That little cutter that's become a little more prominent for Estrada.
Starting to throw that just a little bit more to complement the fastball.
Ian Desmond is the last Nationals player to be drafted by the Expos, 2004. So he is the final link to the Expos organization. He's been a good player. He'll be a free agent at the end of this season. He's been a regular for the last 5 years, and he's going to be an interesting free agent.
There were talk that he might get traded this year because he's a free agent.
Boy, it's hard to trade your shortstop in the middle of a pennant race.
But it's been done. It's been done. The Boston Red Sox in 2004.
Nomar Garcia Pryor.
Traded Nomar.
They brought in Orlando Cabrera.
What are you saying? He was pretty good.
He was pretty good too. There's the changeup and the strikeout. 3 up, 3 down for Estrada. He's retired 6 straight.
Not only has Max Scherzer fit in for this team on the mound, but he's also been a great fit inside the clubhouse. He's brought a lot of levity to the team. In fact, he's come up with a new way to celebrate post-game victories. What they have done, instead of dumping the Gatorade on top of players, they dump a whole box of chocolate syrup. In fact, the folks at Hershey's, after seeing it, have sent the Washington Nationals 180 bottles of chocolate syrup. That's about 200 pounds of chocolate. They figure that's more than enough to get them through the season. Buck, as a guy who does those post-game interviews, I do not want the Blue Jays pouring chocolate over players. Don't think it's going to look good on the suit. You know what I mean?
No way. How about a little whipped cream and a cherry on top? We're going to make a berry sundae.
At least it would taste good.
How about that? I mean, I've seen some celebrations, but chocolate?
You know what? I want to know if they're sending over some Clorox bleach also for those uniforms, because you get those chocolate stains all over your uni.
Well, Mike Wallace, the equipment man for the Nationals, you can bet he's got a challenge getting that chocolate out of these beautiful white uniforms. Now, what would make you think to put chocolate on a guy's head after a ball game? I don't know.
I don't know.
Danny Valencia strikes out. That's the 3rd strikeout for Scherzer. 1 down here in the 4th. Well, you talk about new players going to new teams, and we saw this with Torrey Hunter in Minnesota. And after a win in Minnesota, they do something to celebrate their win. Here's that slider, Pat, and you can see it starting to break a little bit more.
And he's starting to put it down and away to the right hitters. Yeah, those veterans going to new teams, they just have different things to bring everybody together.
And Torrey Hunter brought in the disco lights and the fog machine after a celebration. What do you think Casey Stengel would have thought about all of that?
Probably send him to an earlier grave after they see that. You know, when you would play and you would hit a walk-off hip, you didn't have all the things going on now with the team jumping up and down, right?
Kawasaki bunts it up the first baseline. Scherzer, nice scoop, good grab at first by Tyler Moore. Kawasaki trying to reach with one out, bunts it back to the pitcher who made a good play. Mike Scherzer off the mound quickly.
And luckily he was able to underhand that ball. We've seen that he's had some problems throwing the ball over to first base. So Kawasaki's going to bring it up the first base line. If he picks it up, just shuffles it over to first base. Nice pick by Moore to finish it off.
And Scherzer even bounces this one underhand, and he's picked up by the first baseman, Tyler Moore. So Kevin Pillar, he's responsible for the only run of the game. He had a two-strike home run in the second.
Tyler Moore again making his first start of the season, just the 35th of his career. Stays down and threw on that one to save his pitcher an error.
Well, he sure did, and Scherzer looked like he was bowling right there. He bounced it over there on the short hop, but it results in the second out of the inning. Kevin Pillar shoots it into right, and Harper can't make the play. Pillar's thinking about second, but he'll stop right there. Kevin Pillar, 2 for 2.
More importantly, 2 for 2 in front of the pitcher. So the pitcher, Estrada, does not have to lead off next inning. We mentioned that in game 1, how deep we think Bryce Harper plays in right field. You can see he's now coming in. Thought he had a shot at that one. Plays a deep right field. And they take care of that. As you see Harper saying he lost that one to lights.
Now Kevin Pillar has homered and singled in his 2 at-bats. Marco Estrada singled in his only at-bat, and there's that lob to first. Scherzer just not really comfortable throwing at first, and we've heard that about John Lester as well. Lester with the Cubs having all sorts of trouble throwing that ball to first.
So you've got to take a bigger lead, don't you?
Well, there's a double-edged sword here. You could try to steal,
but don't get thrown out.
You don't get thrown out. Get yourself in scoring position, but you better make it.
I got a question. Does he throw it over there every time like that?
Pretty much.
Every time.
He's really tentative in his throws to first.
Why wouldn't you go all the way out to the cut of the grass then, if you're the base runner?
Because you'd hate to see the first time he threw it hard.
I guess so. That's where scouting would come in.
Yeah,
and I would
has
want
he
to
ever
see
done it? You go to the cut of the grass, you draw the throw, and if he lobs it over like that, go to second.
Or you can get back. I mean, that's easy to get back if that's how he's going to throw it every single time.
There's strike 2 now, 2-2. This is the beauty of baseball. You come to the ballpark and you just never know. Scherzer, of course, has been dealing. He's 6-3 with a 151 earned run average. Came to this game allowing just 3 home runs, and he's given up a home run already tonight. Breaking ball, strike 3 call. So Scherzer gives up a 2-out single, strikes out a pair. They'll go to the bottom of the 4th. The Blue Jays up 1-0. baseball players that we have in today's game. And when you look at the month he put together, the highest OPS in a month by a 22-year-old. Look at the great names that are up there. Joe DiMaggio in 37 in July, 1.487. Then Bryce Harper this past May, 1.379. How about Ted Williams, Boog Powell, and Eddie Matthews? That's quite a list of young players, and Bryce Harper's right in amongst them.
Hey, anytime you can be in the same sentence with Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams, that your numbers stack up with those guys, that's saying something. That's special.
Boog Powell was a great first baseman to those Orioles teams in the 60s and 70s, and of course Eddie Matthews, the Hall of Fame third baseman with the Braves.
He hit 500 home runs.
He was pretty good.
He was pretty good. Wow. Just 22 years old, now in his fourth big league season.
Harper, Moore, and Robinson for the Nationals. And Bryce Harper, for those of you that aren't really that familiar with him, was a catcher in high school and made the transition to the outfield. And I think the thinking was, as a catcher, you don't want to take away any of his offensive capabilities, so they put him in the outfield. He has adjusted well to playing in the outfield. I don't know that he would be regarded as one of the best outfield defenders, but certainly when you put the overall package together, he's one of the best players.
When he was coming up, what I was reading about him was, as a catcher, you get beat up pretty easily. And they didn't want to lose that type of player to an injury early. Plus, he's a big guy for a catcher. That's going to be awfully tough for him. And he's got a great arm. So you put him in the outfield, not unlike Dale Murphy when he was with the Atlanta Braves. He came up as a catcher. Now, he had a problem throwing, so they had to move him to the outfield, but he was a big guy too.
Yeah, Bryce Harper's 6'3". Stays on this ball and drills it to right down into the corner and off the wall. Bautista will play it back in, and he wisely chooses to just lob it in to concede the double to Bryce Harper. A leadoff double here in the fourth.
That was with a flick of the wrist right there, because he was fooled on that pitch by Marco Estrada and still hit it on the line and came about 6 inches from hitting the home run. Look how he stays back and just flicks his wrist at that ball, and it hits right off the top of the wall, 335 feet from home plate. Pretty impressive.
Absolutely impressive. Just his 10th double of the season starts things off for the Nats here in the fourth. Tyler Moore, the first baseman.
You know, there are certain things on a baseball field you just can't teach. This is one of them. It's a changeup. He's fooled, but he just stays back enough and just throws his hand and just flicks that bat at that baseball. And it's not a soft single in the right field. That's a laser down the line, and it's almost gone.
A matter of inches between a double and a home run. There's a drive, and that's a fair ball. Down the left field line, Harper's around third. He's going to score. Moore is headed to second, and he'll get there with an RBI double. Back-to-back doubles, and it's tied.
Now that's more of a traditional double that you see, that line drive down the line. Then Moore hit his first big league home run against the Blue Jays. He had his first multi-home run game in his career against the Blue Jays, and this time another off-speed pitch, and he just rifles it over the head of Donaldson. You can see he's checking that one, and it just lands fair down the left field line for extra bases.
Clint Robinson playing in left field. Robinson spent some time with the Blue Jays minor league clubs in 2013. He goes after the first pitch and lifts a fly ball to left. Valencia is there. Robinson's retired. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Cincinnati swept the Nationals over the weekend, a 3-game series. And Cincinnati's just about the same situation the Blue Jays are, trying to get to 500. They have won 3 in a row, those 3 games against the Nationals.
I believe they get Johnny Cueto back for that game tonight.
Espinosa pops it up. Donaldson over near the Blue Jays dugout is right there, and it's just beyond his reach. You feel much better about going after pop-ups when they're in front of your own dugout. You're fairly confident that they're going to make sure you don't fall into that dugout.
Yeah, all their teammates are right there to help them, tell them where the railing is and to hold back, unlike when Russell Martin went charging into the dugout at Rogers Center against the White Sox. Hurdled that fence and almost went down the steps.
How about that? He jumped right up on top of the railing and landed with both feet in the dugout. Danny Espinosa, the second baseman, takes one upstairs. It's a ball and a strike. The Nationals have tied it up here in the 4th. Bryce Harper with the leadoff double, scored on the double by Tyler Moore. Broken bat, and for some reason Moore hesitated before he went over to third. He may have thought it was a line drive, but so one hop grounded to the second baseman. Espinosa's retired.
I think more of a humpback liner. He wasn't real sure where the second baseman was playing, but Kawasaki was deep, and then explaining his base running. Freezes just for a minute, but that ball was topped by Espinosa and a broken bat. So now he is able to advance. Freeze. Yep, yeah, he's playing back. Okay, I can just jog into third base.
Got to make sure of that before the pitch is thrown. Jose Lobaton, the switch-hitting catcher, batting lefty against Estrada. He doesn't waste any time. Lobaton, his 9th RBI against the Blue Jays, has given the Nationals the lead.
Told you that he has had some big games against the Blue Jays. A couple of walk-off hits against them when he was a member of the Tampa Bay Rays last year. You got a right-hander on deck in Taylor, who has struck out 4 times today, and the left-handed hitter Lobaton got to pitch around him just a little bit more. You don't want to give this guy anything good to hit. Jumps on that first pitch to break the tie.
So this is Michael Taylor's. He struck out his first time up. It's going to reach the seats down the right side. This is a split doubleheader as a result of the rain out in last night's game. Thunderstorms all night last night, and they postponed the game and made it a day-night doubleheader today.
Good pitch right there, down and away. Struck him out last time swinging. Or a changeup. Might be a good time for that right here.
There it is. Taylor strikes out for the 5th time today. That ends the inning, but the Nats score 2 runs on 3 hits. Now time for Blue Jays Central Update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zahn.
photo showing your Blue Jays spirit using the hashtag TDTuesday and tag @BlueJays for a chance to win one of 5 trips to Toronto, where, Buck, I bet you it's a lot warmer and sunnier than it is here in Washington, D.C.
Mary, it's pretty amazing. The temperature to start a game tonight was 17 degrees, and it has cooled off dramatically. Monday afternoon, it was sweltering, very humid and muggy, and then the thunderstorms went through and cooled everything down.
Yeah, this feels like a game mid-May or something like that here on the East Coast.
Right now, the Nationals have a 2-1 lead. Blue Jays lost 2-0 in game 1. Hits are even at 4. Kevin Pillar responsible for the Blue Jays run. He had a 2-out solo home run in the second. Jose Reyes, Josh Donaldson, and Jose Bautista will take on Max Scherzer here in the 5th.
You know, we mentioned this the first time we saw the third baseman. Look at Escobar taking away the bunt possibility from Jose Reyes. I mean, he's as close as anybody that we have seen. Way in on the grass.
Yeah, you don't see Reyes bunt that often.
You know what we've seen him do, though? Slash a ball by the third baseman. And that swing right there from Jose looked like he was trying to do that.
Yeah, when you're in so close, and now with 2 strikes, there's really no reason for him to play in on the grass. Reyes lines it to center, right to Michael Taylor. Well, Max Scherzer making a very effective adjustment to the National League. These are the ERA leaders in the National League. Zach Greinke, the Dodgers, Shelby Miller of the Braves, and then Scherzer. And how about a couple of Pirates through the top 5? That's a pretty impressive list.
What a year so far for A.J. Burnett at 181, and Garrett Cole. He's going to get a lot of votes, I think, for Cy Young. He is just now coming into his own. But that's an impressive list right there.
Max Scherzer coming into this game had walked 10 and struck out 85. Tonight he's walked 1 and punched out 4 already, keeping that great ratio intact. Well, you mentioned the slider early on. He was struggling to find the feel for that breaking ball, but he's got it now.
Yeah, he's starting to throw it where he needs to. Down and away to the right-handers. They have led Donaldson off with a slider every time today. How about that? The emergency 2-strike swing last time, he got a changeup with 2 strikes and shot it into right field for a base hit. And Scherzer, I was watching him after that. He looked at Donaldson and said, "How'd you hit that ball?"
Again, he's shortened up his stroke with 2 strikes, just protecting the plate.
He's on one of those rolls right now where everything looks huge coming into home plate. You pick up the slider early, you pick up the changeup, you can turn on the fastball.
Off-speed pitch pulled in the hole. Nesman with a strong throw. 2 down.
Save during Canada's Color Expert Sale. Only at Home Hardware and Building Center locations. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
Jose Bautista steps in with 2 outs and nobody on. He's flied out twice to center. Scherzer's doing a good job of mixing up the pitches now.
Yeah, that's what makes him so tough. We told you in that scouting report, he's got so many different ways to get you out. And he does his homework. He really studies the opposition, puts together a pretty good game plan against the team he is facing that night, and then goes out and performs.
And his pitches are very high quality pitches. The fastball will be in the mid-90s. Slider very tight and late breaking. He's got a terrific changeup. Then he'll mix in a curveball from time to time.
It's pretty impressive. I mean, he knows exactly what he wants to do here. Remember the last time that they faced each other, Scherzer and Bautista, he really took his time out of the stretch, making Jose wait.
See, he shook off 4 pitches before he got the pitch he wanted from the catcher, Jose Lobaton. We'll see how quickly they get their heads together on this pitch. 2-2. Going away. Scherzer strikes out Bautista. He elevated that fastball. It's 5 strikeouts for Scherzer. We'll go to the bottom of the 5th. Washington has a 2-1 lead. Authority of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball partnership and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball partnership. We head to the bottom of the 5th inning. The Nationals have a 2-1 lead. Marco Estrada gave up back-to-back doubles to start the 4th, and Tyler Moore drove in Bryce Harper with the second double, and then 2 outs later, Jose Lobaton jumped on the first pitch and drove in the second run of the inning to make it 2-1. That's where we stand now.
2-out RBIs. Nothing like it.
This is the pitcher, Max Scherzer. Scherzer and Estrada had quite a battle back in the 3rd inning. Scherzer eventually grounded out, but it took 10 pitches to retire the pitcher. Scherzer's got a good cut at that fastball.
Okay, there's your 2 fastballs right there. Now you got to put them away. Maybe try that breaking ball, curveball. Yeah, you're right.
Up the middle, Reyes can't get there. It's a base hit for Scherzer. A leadoff single. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. And Joey Gallo, one of the top prospects in all of baseball.
Looked like it was a cutter that time from Marco Estrada, and you can see Reyes is shading him up the middle, but he just cannot get that ball as it heads out into center field for a leadoff single.
Scherzer's 6th hit of this season. YUNEL ESCOBAR shows bunt and bunts it off the plate. Escobar for the season doesn't have a sacrifice bunt.
It's a team that's got to scratch and claw for runs. They don't run very well. Not a lot of stolen bases. And that ball is down. So they have to do other things. They don't hit a lot of home runs. Harper's got his share of home runs, but there's not a lot of home runs in this lineup. So Matt Williams' team, they've got to scratch and claw.
Yep, they've got to play contact baseball, go first to third. Two balls and a strike to the third baseman, YUNEL Escobar. Now it's 3-1. Pete Walker, the pitching coach, always close and quick to communicate with John Gibbons. The bullpen just starting to stir. And there's a walk. First two reach here in the fifth.
You know, if this looks familiar, this situation here, it happened in the fifth inning in game one. Exactly the same way. Zimmerman singled the pitcher. There was a walk to Escobar. Desmond sacrificed. And that's when Bryce Harper got the base hit.
And they scored their 2 runs in that inning. So Desmond here in the same situation. Blue Jays are anticipating the bunt.
Get it out. If he's sacrificing, get it out somewhere.
Not showing bunt here as they have a lead. In game one, it was a scoreless game at that point. Well, Matt Williams crossing things up a bit. That's Randy Knorr, the bench coach, the former Blue Jay. He has become one of the leading candidates for a managerial spot around baseball. He's done a terrific job with his Nationals organization.
Good baseball man. He's going to be a manager someday, somewhere.
Estrada ahead 0-2. Desmond has struck out twice so far in this game. Blue Jays hard pressed to score runs today, and Estrada anxious to minimize the impact of a leadoff single and a walk here.
I think the reason they're not bunting is they're not going to pitch to Bryce Harper tonight. In the first game they pitched to him. They're not going to pitch to him tonight. I think Matt Williams knows that, and that's why he's letting Desmond go ahead and swing away.
That's a great point. John Gibbons allowed R.A. Dickey to pitch to Harper in his third at bat in game one. He drove in the first run of the ball game. Different story here. Harper's already 2 for 2 in this game.
Yeah, and he just missed a home run by a couple of inches. So if he sacrifices first base open, he doesn't get to swing the bat, his best player.
Well, that's what you try to do, is constantly put your best player in a position to succeed. And if you ask him to walk or to bunt, then they'll just walk Harper. You see Ryan Chapera starting to loosen up for the Blue Jays.
It's all about matchups. You want to put your players in the best matchup where your team is going to come out ahead. And you want to succeed.
Boy, after an 0-2 count, is now 3-2. Bryce Harper on deck. As we mentioned, he's already 2 for 2 in this game. Foul back. Everything's away to Desmond in this at bat. Trying to stay away from his power. He's got 4 home runs. Full count. Nobody out. Struck him out. Fastball away. They pitched him away the entire at bat, and Desmond strikes out for the 3rd straight time this game.
And a big swing right there. You mentioned the power. He's had 3 straight years of 20 home runs. And it looked like he was swinging for a home run there, but the strikeout allows Harper to swing the bat.
Take a look at the home run leaders in the National League. Bryce Harper with 18. That ties him with Nelson Cruz for the Major League lead. Todd Frazier of the Reds at 16. Paul Goldschmidt, he had quite a month of May as well. He hit 10 home runs in the month of May to give him 15 for the season. Giancarlo Stanton, Blue Jays will see him in the upcoming homestand. And then Jock Peterson, he's a rookie and having a heck of a start to his career.
14 home runs already this year, but the guy standing at the plate right there with 18 just missed number 19 his last time up.
One out. Harper has a good cut. Harper has grounded into 5 double plays. But he's obviously a dangerous hitter, batting .333 after going 2 for 2 to start the game. Max Scherzer, the pitcher, at second. YUNEL ESCOBAR at first.
And Wester's keeping his eye on that pitcher. He doesn't want him to stray too far at second base.
Staying away from Harper.
I think that's a pretty good idea. Stay away from his power. He had a changeup last time where he stayed back just long enough and hit a rocket to right field.
Breaking ball, fair ball. Colabella will flip to Estrada, and he dropped it. Estrada came across the bag and just dropped the ball. Gibbons is going to argue that he had the ball in his possession when he stepped on first base.
And then maybe argue that he was trying to take it out. We will see it. An easy play, ground ball to first baseman. He throws it to him and he missed it. He missed it all the way.
Yeah, he did. He never had possession of the baseball. He kind of blocks his vision out when he reaches for it. He was right in front of his face. He drops the ball. Harper is safe at first. Colabella with the flip. And watch the glove. It just kind of goes in front of his face. He loses the ball. It's blocked out and then clanks off the thumb of his glove, and he dropped it.
Yeah, there's no argument there. That ball, he never secured the ball in the pocket of his glove. If they look at this one, that's what they're going to see, that the ball was never in his glove from that replay. And it looks like they're going to
Well, they're asking John if he wants to challenge it now, and Larry Vanover, the crew chief, is going to go ask him, hey, we had a conference about it. We don't think he had possession of it, and they're just going to wave it off. I think the umpires did Gibbons a favor right there. Yes. Said after discussing it among the 4 umpires.
Yeah, after taking a look at it. Remember where Gibby is down in the third base dugout. He doesn't have the look that we saw. And that ball just clanked off of his glove. It was a high throw, and he went after it with 2 hands and just never secured it. So now that error is going to really compound the problem here.
So it's an error on Estrada. And Tyler Moore, he had an RBI double the last time he faced Estrada in the 4th. the plate with the first pitch. The Blue Jays just haven't been able to play a clean game lately. Defense kicks it around at the wrong time.
Setting up big innings and then teams taking advantage of that with big base hits. But you're right, defensively the Blue Jays have been very shaky. That's cost them extra base runners and extra runs.
And they're playing first place teams. Playing the Minnesota Twins and now the Nationals, and the next up will be the Houston Astros. You just can't give those good teams those extra outs.
Good teams take advantage of it. And right now, Tyler Moore is in the driver's seat, 2-0. No place to put him.
That'll be back out of play. Two balls and a strike. The starter in desperate need of a ground ball.
Yeah, he's got to make a pitch right here. If he has confidence in that changeup here, 2-1, he might be able to get a ground ball and get out of this thing.
Through the changeup, but it was off the plate. Now 3-1. Clint Robinson is on deck. The bases are loaded.
Challenged him with a fastball, and he was a little tardy, like he was almost looking for something off speed.
There's Robinson. He has walked and flied out. Max Scherzer got it all started. He singled to start the inning. Right after that, YUNEL ESCOBAR walked, and after a strikeout, Bryce Harper reached on the air by the pitcher. Fly ball deep to right. Scherzer is tagging at third, and Bautista will just get the ball back to the cutoff mound, Kawasaki. And Scherzer comes in to score the third run as Moore picks up the RBI, his second of the night.
Even a healthy Jose Bautista is not going to throw that runner out. Scherzer makes his way base at a time, makes him around the diamond to score the third run of the night, and they take advantage of the air.
So it's now 3-1 Washington. Clint Robinson with runners at the corners and 2 outs. Those good teams take advantage of your mistakes. There's a fly ball into left field. Danny Valencia coming in now. Gets there and ends the inning. But the Nationals add a run in their half of the fifth. Take advantage of an error by the pitcher. It is 3-1 Washington.
Camp Day at your local Tim Hortons. Every coffee you buy will help send economically disadvantaged kids on a camping adventure that can open their eyes to their own potential. So make a point of heading down to Tim Hortons tomorrow to celebrate Camp Day. Huh?
That's a great opportunity to help out some kids and get a chance to experience Camp Day, and make sure you go in there and get you a nice couple of Tims and grab a couple of Timbits, and then you're set for the day.
I wish we were home because I'd be buying all kind of coffee.
We'd be supporting that great cause. Here is Russell Martin leading things off with the Blue Jays down by 2. Martin reached on an air in the first and flied out to right. Hot shot. Boy, nice backhanded grab by Desmond. He takes one away from Russell Martin.
You know, he has had his problems this year. 13 errors, a lot of them throwing errors, but he's a quality shortstop. Positioned perfectly, and watch him hit this ball from the backhand. Short hop. And now takes his time across the diamond. A good strong throw to get the first out.
Desmond is now 29 years old. He's going to be a very attractive free agent. He's an offensive shortstop. He now has 95 career home runs. Chris Colabello, he's 0 for 2 so far. Colabello playing at first base for the first time this season. In case you're just joining us, Edwin Encarnacion did not start either of these games in Washington. And according to the manager, Edwin is dealing with a leg issue. But we have not been given specifics. But we've seen Edwin kind of hobbling around a little bit lately. He's played every game to this point.
And played in the field. With the injury to Jose Bautista, Edwin's bat stays in the lineup by playing first base. You watch him on ground balls in the infield. He just doesn't dig it down first base because he's been struggling a little bit.
Colabello has a 12-game hit streak on the line. He's hit 3 homers and driven in 8 during that hit streak.
With the hit in game 1 with a leadoff single in the 7th inning, the inning where the Blue Jays had a chance against Jordan Zimmerman. It was really the only inning where they got a runner to third base all afternoon long.
Yeah, it looked like they really had something going. Josh Tolle, who has since been sent back to AAA Buffalo, had his second hit of the game in that 7th inning. But they left them both aboard.
You play the Nationals, you're going to get a good starting pitcher.
And they have 2 of their 5 starters on the shelf right now. Doug Fister and Steven Strasburg.
Strasburg was originally scheduled to throw tomorrow's game, but has since been put on the disabled list.
Colabello lines it to center field, but right at Michael Taylor. 2 down. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Colin McHugh giving up 4 runs on 6 hits in 2 innings, and the Orioles have taken advantage of that. Mike Wright starting for the Orioles, that big 6'6" rookie that throws hard. He is on the mound for Baltimore. He's 2-0 so far this season.
He throws downhill, doesn't he?
Danny Valencia in the hole, 0-2. Scherzer is starting to feel it. Blue Jays have just 4 hits. Kevin Pillar has 2 of those 4 hits, a home run and a single.
We were talking earlier about Scherzer has the ability to dial it up a little bit when he needs to. See him reach back a little bit more with that fastball. Up to 95.
He's Ball is driven in the alley in right center. Bryce Harper over, has it go off his glove. Valencia will stop at second. That ball was hit in the alley and hit hard. Valencia ends up at second base. Now Harper had to slide for it. Looked like he got a glove on it, but couldn't make the catch.
Ball was slicing back to him. 2 strikes, and Valencia smokes this ball into the gap. Harper goes over. I don't know if he backhands that ball. Maybe he catches it, but it goes right off of his wrist and falls safely. 5th hit of the night for the Blue Jays. Harper just missed that ball.
Yeah, he sure did. A hit on the heel of his glove. Danny Valencia gets his 8th double of the season. That's just the 2nd extra base hit, and this is Justin Smoke. He comes on batting for Munenori Kawasaki. Smoke started in game 1, went 0 for 4 as the first baseman. First pitch changeup to the pinch hitter. Ryan Goins getting his batting helmet on. There's still some options left should the inning continue. Smoke has been the most productive pinch hitter for the Jays. He's 5 for 12 coming off the bench. Back-to-back changeups.
Yeah, hoping for a long one, and Justin certainly can do that, knock it out of the ballpark. That's why they send him up there. Scherzer knows that. Takes a little something off, throws him a couple of changeups. Second baseman Espinosa is deep, trying to keep that ball on the infield.
Way outside. 2-1 now. Blue Jays trying to scratch their way back into this ball game. Danny Valencia at second with a 2-out double.
Changeup. He does his homework.
Well, he's got such a wide assortment of pitches. He doesn't have to pitch in a predictable fashion. He can cross you up. He's got confidence in all of the pitches.
And when one of them is not working, like we saw the slider the first couple of innings not working, he would go to his changeup. Now it seems to be working a lot better.
Smoke is 1 for 13 against Max Scherzer. That fastball upstairs. Full count, 2 outs. Kevin Pillar is on deck. He's 2 for 2 with a homer so far against Scherzer. Another changeup, and Smoke gets a piece of it. Each club with just 5 hits. Steve Delabar has loosened up now. He appears to be ready if needed. Smoke works the walk. He came with another changeup, and Smoke walks. Kevin Pillar's had 2 different approaches tonight. On a 3-2 pitch in the second inning, he homered. And he's trying to iron out some mechanical issues. As you see that he's come to the plate, he's got the high leg kick, and then he's got a toe tap, so there are a few things he's done differently. On the left, that's his first at bat.
High leg kick and homer, and that on the one on the right, that is where he's single to right field. So it's coming around for him.
Yeah.
He's trying to make adjustments.
He's trying to stay grounded and keep that front foot close to the ground so he gets it down quickly. And we have talked about it, and he has worked with Eric Owens and Brooke Jacoby on trying to minimize that high leg kick. He's 2 for 2 now. Steve McCanny with a quick visit to the mound. Breaking ball inside off the plate. Ryan Goins came on to pinch run for Smoke, the pinch hitter, who pinch hit for the second baseman Kawasaki. There's a good slider down and away. And when Encarnacion has grabbed the bat, he's on deck. The Nationals bullpen just now starting to go to work. There's another drive to left. Get up, ball, get up, and gone. 3-run home run for Kevin Pillar. His second of the night.
How about that? You know, you tinker around and you work in the cage and you get right. And Kevin Pillar is getting it right tonight at the expense of Max Scherzer. Another off-speed pitch. And he missed his spot, and Pillar drills it to left field. How about that? First 2 batters go quietly here in the 6th inning. And a double by Valencia on a ball that was missed by Parker. A walk, and now a 3-run home run by Pillar puts the Blue Jays ahead 4-3.
First multi-home run game of his career, a 3-run home run. Kevin Pillar has driven in all 4 runs tonight. And it all started with 2 outs and nobody on, so Marco Estrada still bats.
How about that off-speed pitch? He winds up and just throws the barrel of the bat at the baseball.
Estrada singled in the 2nd inning.
There's that slider. That's a spinner right there. He wanted that ball down and away, and it just stayed in. And I can't believe it. He doesn't give up many home runs.
Bouncing ball, and Desmond to the hole. It's short. Strong arm in time. The inning is over. But what an inning it was for the Blue Jays. 2 outs and nobody on. A double, a walk, and a 3-run home run. Kevin Pillar, 2 homers tonight off Max Scherzer, who allowed just 3 coming into this game.
Game goes Tuesday, July 14th in Cincinnati, Ohio, home of Pat Tabler. Help make Josh Donaldson, Jose Bautista, Devin Travis, Russell Martin, and Edwin Encarnacion starters for the American League. Fans are allowed to vote a maximum of 35 times per email address. Vote early, vote often, vote at BlueJays.com. And Tabby, is it true that anyone coming from Canada to Cincinnati will have room and board at your place?
Absolutely.
Great.
Not. Because I think there's going to be a lot of them.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of family and friends over for that All-Star weekend, that's for sure. Well, brand new ball game for the Blue Jays. They have taken a 4-3 lead, and how about the night for Kevin Pillar? His first multi-home run game of his career. A career high 4 RBIs, and he's matched his career high with 3 hits. The 4th time he's had a 3-hit game in the big leagues.
You come to the ballpark, you just keep working on things, and they might not have gone well for him in the month of May. Well, this is a new month, and it's starting off quite nicely.
Kevin came out and hit early prior to Monday's game, which was eventually rained out, but he hit on the field. Then he hit in the cage after that session. He worked long and hard with Eric Owens trying to get his timing down a little bit with that front foot, and so far so good. Boy, there's nothing more rewarding for a hitting coach than to have instant results with something you've introduced to a player. Marco Estrada.
And how about this? Marco was out of the ball game before that home run. Ryan Goins stays in the game and takes up his position at second base. He was going to be pinch hit for, but after that 3-run home run, he stays in the game.
Ground ball to go, because that's what you like. You come into the game, you want to get some action right away. He throws out Danny Espinosa. So Estrada, this is his 6th start for the Blue Jays. They have lost all 5 of his starts. He'd love nothing more than to give him another inning at least here. Pitch count's in good shape. He's thrown 90 pitches. Perfect night for a pitcher.
Yeah, you're not going to get tired. You're not going to get run down. Plus, he throws a lot of changeups, and that keeps wear and tear off of your arm. It's a great combination. That fastball, 89 miles an hour, maybe 90, and a good changeup.
Just off the plate inside. This is the catcher, Jose Lobaton. He's hit the ball hard twice. He lined out to right and had an RBI single to right. Hits this ball into center. Pillar gets over quickly and runs it down. 2 down.
Washington begins with a new 8-speed dual clutch 2016 Acura ILX. Catch it if you can.
Washington, D.C. Lots of great monuments. Of course, the Lincoln Memorial here in Washington. And a great sightseeing round. You've enjoyed your time here with your family.
I was there yesterday at the Lincoln Memorial snapping pictures. Felt like Clark Griswold with the family taking pictures on vacation.
What's on the agenda tomorrow?
White House. Woo. Heading to the White House tomorrow morning.
You having lunch there? Breaking ball buried in the dirt. 1-2 to Michael Taylor.
We'll go on a nice little tour. Been in the White House a couple of times. Of course, the first time was in 1992.
Wow, with the World Series.
The World Series. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty impressive tour. An opportunity to see the inside of the White House. And the breaking ball, this one again bounced in the dirt.
He's gotten him a couple of times today. Marco Estrada to Taylor on changeups. So we might see one now that the count has gone to 2-2. He has struck out 5 times today.
He was 1 for 4 with 3 strikeouts in game 1. Fastball he wouldn't chase. Dan Uggla is on deck. He'll bat for the pitcher if Taylor can reach base. Drives this one into right, and he will reach base. Bautista can't cut it off. It's all the way to the wall. Michael Taylor with a two-out double. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Well, Jamie, right now it seems as though everybody in a Ranger uniform is swinging a hot bat. They lost Beltre to the disabled as Joey Gallo comes up and gets a couple hits in his first two at bats. And Gallo, one of the top prospects, already has 4 RBIs in his first major league game.
That's nothing new. I think he hit 42 bombs last year.
So this is Dan Uggla, the veteran, batting for the pitcher, Max Scherzer. Rain has picked up a bit now as that first pitch is in the dirt. Blake Treinen is up, loosening up for the Nationals. Martin thought about throwing to second, but changed his mind. Dan Uggla just 1 for 3 as a pinch hitter. Hitting .203 for the season. He's got a home run and 11 RBI.
He's got some power. He's got to still hit your spots. Uggla has hit 11 home runs in his career against the Blue Jays.
High strike.
Thank you. Looked like it might have been out of the strike zone.
Uggla just 1 for 11 against Marco Estrada. Now it's 2-2.
Good curveball right there. That gives him that third pitch. Estrada, fastball, changeup, curveball. Just put something extra in the mind of that hitter. That was a good one. Look at that. Spins that ball right off his fingertips, and it's in a good spot.
Estrada took a very late look at second, and I don't think he ever picked up the catcher's glove on that last pitch. He was still looking at Taylor. And there's Escobar on deck, the leadoff man. Full count. The Blue Jays have a 4-3 lead. To left, and Danny Valencia makes a nice sliding catch to take a hit away from Uggla. Estrada is through 6. Good play in left field by Danny Valencia. He has a beat on it. It's sinking quickly, but he stays with it to end the inning.
June the 8th. Stay tuned to watch Jamie Campbell and Greg Zahn shave their heads to rally support for Childhood Cancer Canada. It'll be live on the pregame show, and you can support the cause and learn more. Go to sportsnet.ca/save or text the word HERO to 45678 to make a $10 donation. Great job by Jamie and Greg stepping up to do this for a great cause. Buck?
Absolutely. It is a great effort by our boys, and we're proud of them for their efforts. And this is Blake Trinan making his 20th appearance of the season.
Big dude, man. 6'4", 215 with a big arm. Fastball reaches up there at 97 miles an hour. They got him from Oakland in the Mike Morse trade. Put him in the bullpen, and he's come up with some big numbers. 28 strikeouts in those 25 innings.
Yeah, that trade was in January 2013. He got into 15 games a year ago with the Nationals. And Reyes lines the pitch into center field for a leadoff single, his first hit of the night.
Turned that 97-mile-an-hour fastball over. It was a high fastball. He's able to get on top of that one. Just use your hands. And that's what he does. Shorten up that swing. He's going to supply all the power, so you don't have to overswing.
Josh Donaldson has walked, singled, and grounded out. 7th inning. Looks like Donaldson's doing a little surveying. Getting an idea what he's dealing with in this at-bat.
You can see he's got good movement on the fastball. It's a heavy sinking fastball, 96, 97. Decent off-speed stuff, slider and changeup. That's his bread and butter right there.
Ground ball up the middle, through for a base hit. Reyes is going to go to third base. There'll be no throw. Josh Donaldson with his second hit of the night. Back-to-back hits. Let's check in again with Jamie Campbell. Clay Buchholz allowing just 3 hits through 7 1/3. He struck out 8 Twins, and Mike Pelfrey giving up 1 run on 6 hits. Jose Bautista for 3 with a great opportunity to build on the Blue Jays lead. Reyes at third, Donaldson at first. Inside at 97. You're right. He's got a big arm.
Yeah, big arm. Pitching some big innings now for the Nationals.
That slider way outside. It's 2-0. Trinan was a starter coming up through the Oakland minor league system, and you can see why they would want to see if he could start. Big stature.
Projected to be a number 3 starter, but Washington likes him in the bullpen.
Jose Lobato wanted that last pitch. It's now 3-0 to Bautista, and I would think you'd let him swing.
Sure.
It's something to drive to the outfield and cash in that runner at third.
Yeah, if you feel comfortable against this pitcher and you've seen enough, let him go.
Ball 4. Bautista takes another walk. So that'll load the bases for Russell Martin. Max Scherzer, the starter for the Nationals. 6 innings, 6 hits, 4 earned runs, and all the damage done by Kevin Pillar. A pair of home runs. He had 4 RBIs against Scherzer. And coming into this game, Max Scherzer had allowed just 3 home runs all season long. He gives up 2 tonight to Kevin Pillar.
Yeah, that 6th inning. He's going to be thinking about that one tonight. Got the first 2 outs, then a double by Valencia, a walk to Smoke, and then the 3-run home run by Pillar puts the Blue Jays ahead.
Russell Martin fouls off the first pitch. To give you a little more information about Pilar's multi-home run game against Scherzer, it's the 5th player to have a multi-home run against Max Scherzer, but the first right-handed hitter to do so. The lefties, David Ortiz, Jorge Posada, Justin Morneau, and Chris Dickerson. Pilar becomes the first right-handed hitter to hit more than one home run in a game, a multi-home run game against Scherzer.
He's just so tough against right-handers with that angle that he creates. But no problem for Kevin. Had a couple of hangers on the inside part of the plate, and he didn't miss them.
And he kept them fair. So now it's 0-2. Russell Martin with nobody out. Oh, Blue Jays got to build their lead here. Blake Trinan in relief of Max Scherzer. Little dribbler out in front of home. One play, and that's to home, and they'll get the force out. Reyes is out. 1-2, pitcher to catcher.
They were not going to turn a double play. And you can see why they like him. That ball just burrowing in on the hands of Russell Martin. He only played the plate. He shovels at the Lobaton. Finish off the play at the plate. One down.
Lobaton did a good job. He flipped the mask off and then looked down to make sure he was standing on the plate, anticipating the quick toss from the pitcher. So Reyes is out on the fielder's choice. Bases remain loaded. Chris Colabello 0-for-3.
This is what you were talking about. Get rid of the mask right away so you can pick up the baseball. Then find the plate and finish it off. Put that ball right into your glove. You're only going to get one out on that play anyway.
Chris Colabello trying to extend his hit streak to 13. And he will. Coming in to score is Donaldson, and they'll stop Bautista at third. Chris Colabello with a big hit to knock in the 5th Blue Jay run and make it a 2-run game. Donaldson scores.
You know, when you're facing a sinker ball pitcher like Trinan is, you got to make him get that ball up. That ball doesn't move as much when it's up in the strike zone. That's what Colabello does. Makes him get that ball up. And that's a very hittable pitch right there, about belt high on the inner half, and he rips it in the left field. 13-game hit streak, hitting .353 with a lot of production.
It's a 5-3 game. Bases still loaded. Danny Valencia doubled to the alley in right center with 2 outs in the 6th. Goes after that first breaking ball.
Crossing him up. Valencia was looking for the fastball. You can see he's stepping in the bucket just a little bit, anticipating that sinker in on his hands. And they have crossed him up, thrown a couple of breaking balls. Now you got a battle. Close off the left side of the infield right here.
Another breaking ball in the dirt.
By that I mean think about back through the middle, so you stay on that pitch just a little bit longer. These kind of pitchers can be tough on right-handed hitters.
They throw hard. They have that hard sinker and then that late breaking slider. Baseball going in opposite directions. Coming in. And a little tapper foul right at home. Blue Jays were shut out in game one. They were shut out for the first time this season, 2-0. Jordan Zimmerman combined with Drew Story. Zimmerman went 8 innings. There's a drive to center. Taylor back. Tagging at third is Bautista, and he will come in to score. Danny Valencia with a good at bat. He drives in Bautista with a deep fly ball to center. Extra run for the Blue Jays here.
Add-on runs. Keep getting those add-on runs. Make the job of the bullpen a lot easier. He got the one pitch to hit in that at bat, and he did something with it. Didn't miss it. Found himself in a hole quickly and then battled. And picked up a big run for the Blue Jays, and that's going to send Matt Williams to the mound.
Blake Treinen had a tough start to his inning, back-to-back singles. Then he walked Bautista. He got a big out with Russell Martin, but now he leaves and turns things over to the left-hander. Felipe Rivero coming on to face Ryan Goins. Buena, who's been a big surprise for the Astros. This is a young right-hander, Felipe Rivero. He just got called up for the start of this series.
Came over from Tampa Bay with Jose Lobaton for Nathan Carnes. And this is his first big league game.
Brian Goins, his first at bat. Goins entered the ball game defensively. Actually, as a pinch runner in the sixth for Justin Smoke, took over at second base. Kawasaki started. So that's the first big league game for the pitcher, Felipe Rivero. Signed originally by the Tampa Bay Rays. There goes the runner. The throw to second. They're going to try to steal a run, and they will. Lobaton's throw was high. Russell Martin was thinking about coming home. He took off as soon as the catcher made the throw to second. And the Blue Jays steal a run here in the seventh.
Boy, that was set up perfectly by the Blue Jays. You got a young left-handed pitcher on the mound. So his back is to the runner at third base. You start the runner at first. You want that catcher to throw through. As soon as he cocks his arm to throw that ball to second base, Russell Martin is coming home. He's hard charging to try and steal a run, and it works out.
So it's the air by the catcher. That's a bunt. That's going to stay fair. Just kicked the grass and went foul as Goins bunted it. Check that it's not an error. It's going to be a double steal as Russell Martin broke. Now, Luis Rivera is discussing this play with the umpire, Brian Knight, that the pitcher had made contact with that ball while it was on the foul line. If that's the case, then it's a fair ball.
And it'll be a base hit. If they want to talk about it, that's a reviewable play. Let's see, this ball just kicked to the left. If he touched it, it was in foul territory.
Yeah, it was in foul territory. It rolls clear of that foul line. I don't know that he touched it. Boy, he brushed, but I don't think he made contact, and that's what the umpires have decided. So it will be a foul ball. Colabello returns to second, and the Blue Jays score a run on a double steal. One and two to Goins. Ground ball towards second. Espinosa throws out Goins. The inning is over, but another big inning for the Blue Jays. They scored 3 runs in the 7th, and there's everybody stirring it up tonight for the Blue Jays. Reyes got it started. He stirred things up. Then Donaldson's cooking. Same for Bautista. Everybody's rolling in Washington.
Stanley Cup final goes tomorrow. Both the Blackhawks and Lightning coming off 7 game series victories. 8 o'clock will be the game for Game 1 Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Pacific on CBC. And the man you see right there, Bo Schultz, huge Chicago Blackhawks fan. Now you may ask, why is he a Blackhawks fan when he was born and raised in Texas? Well, he now makes his offseason home in Chicago and has become a huge fan of the Hawks. Buck?
Well, that's pretty standard. People that live in Chicago like to get behind the Blackhawks, and we know Jerry Howard, he's a big Blackhawks fan because his son lives there in Chicago. This is Liam Hendricks, who's on now with the Blue Jays, up 4 runs.
There's Liam's numbers in the 18 games. He has solidified the back of that bullpen. He'll pitch in the 7th or the 8th inning in front of Brett Cecil, and he will get the top of the lineup.
Marco Estrada in line for his first win as a starter.
I think he did a great job.
He sure did.
6 innings, he battled that team, gave up 2 earned runs, 6 hits, made big pitches when he needed to.
Walked a couple, struck out 5. Escobar takes ball 1. It's 1-2 to the Nationals leadoff man. Now it's 2-2. Escobar, he fouls that one right off his leg. May have hit him right in the knee.
Yeah, he wears that protective shin guard. That one, though, I think went right off the knee. And right back out on the mound. That fastball was coming in on Escobar. He pulls his hands in. No, that went right off the shoe.
Looked like it started on his knee and went down.
Yeah, knee and shoe.
Yeah, hit him right on the top of that kneecap.
Tell you, I've done that a few times. I fouled a ball off my back knee. You ever foul a ball off the back knee? That's hard to do.
That's very hard to do.
Front knee, I get it.
Yeah, the back knee, that's you really beat them.
It's like the swing boom on your back leg.
It comes right inside, yep. Yeah, oftentimes you'll see hitters, that's why they wear the shin guards. They take that pitch down and in and get the top of it. 2-2. Nobody out. We're in the bottom of the 7th. Ground ball. Goins takes his time. Escobar is retired. Let's check in again with Jamie Campbell. He's having a busy night. I'm sure we'll see that over and over again. The high foul, that's going to be into the seats, out of play. Tough night for Ian Desmond. He has struck out all 3 times he's come to the plate.
Marco pitched him tough. Estrada, he was using a breaking ball at times, using a changeup. Struck him out the last time up after the first 2 batters reached. That was a huge strikeout.
Yeah, and it was a little different strategy because in the first game, as we mentioned at that time, Desmond was asked to sacrifice, but because Bryce Harper had already gone 2 for 2 in the previous 2 at-bats, he didn't want to sacrifice into a red-hot bat. You open up first base, and they're going to walk Harper.
Yeah. You take the bat out of your best player's hand, so they let him swing away. He struck out. In the hole again.
Russell Martin knew what he wanted to do with that fastball. He was insistent that Liam Hendriks throws it high. I mean, he was almost standing up, straight up behind home plate. Said, I want this upstairs, and he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, he showed him about 3 or 4 times where he wanted that ball. Liam Hendriks hits the glove. Give it up here. Up here. I've done my scouting report on this guy. With 2 strikes, he will chase. It's a check swing, and it's another strikeout.
Good job by Russell Martin. Good execution by Liam Hendriks. Desmond has struck out 4 times tonight. 2 down. Bryce Harper. Boy, this is how you want to face Harper. 2 outs, nobody on. And you're ahead by 4.
Yeah, that was my last point. And you got a 4-run lead. You can be aggressive with them if you want, or you can try and get him out a different way. But 4-run lead and 2 outs, nobody on. Liam Hendriks looks like he's going to go right after him.
Boy, Hendriks put that fastball in a good spot. Little late movement, down and away. Seventh inning, not many pitchers give in to Bryce Harper. 174 average, 7th inning home. And that's the right approach. He's the most dangerous hitter in their lineup, and why would you challenge him later on in the game? Of course, the Nationals are in first place, so everybody pays a lot of attention to Bryce Harper's at bats.
And why would you let him try and beat you? It's important that you have good hitters surround him, so they have to pitch to him.
Yeah, the best protection for a good hitter like Bryce Harper is to have guys on base ahead of him. You're going to pitch to Bryce Harper no matter who's behind him. You're going to pitch very carefully. It doesn't make any difference. But if you have guys on base, you got nowhere to put Bryce Harper.
And he can handle it. He can handle the pressure of those guys on base, and if they're trying to pitch around him.
He's got pretty good plate discipline as well. He leads the National League with 44 walks. Early on, he was aggressive. He was all about hitting everything he saw. His 44 walks leads the majors. But now he has learned plate discipline. Drives this one in the air to left. Should be an easy play for Valencia. It is, and Liam Hendricks has a 1-2-3 7th inning. Kevin Pillar will lead things off. He's had a big night. He'll start things for the Jays in the 8th. Begins with the new 8-speed dual clutch 2016 Acura ILX. Catch it if you can.
Kevin Pillar has been so good tonight. We're going to show you 2 drives of the game. This one on a 3-2 pitch down the left field line for his first home run of the night and his 3rd of the season. And then the capper right here, backup slider, and he hammers the ball down the left field line. 3-run home run. This is the ball that put the Blue Jays ahead. 3-run home run right in the first row. Our drives of the game by Kevin Pillar tonight for the Blue Jays.
And Pillar with those 2 home runs. There's only been 2 3-homer games this season. Adrian Gonzalez of the Dodgers and Bryce Harper of the Nationals have both had 3-homer games.
On top of those 2 home runs, Pillar's also had a single, so he's been perfect tonight.
It's his 4th 3-hit game of his career. He's never had a 4-hit game. And he's behind quickly 0-2. Kevin Pillar out on 3 pitches, 1 down. Check in with Jamie Campbell. Jack Peterson, we mentioned what a season he's put together. Home run number 16 for Peterson. Pretty good start to his rookie season. Peterson now with 30 RBIs. Liam Hendricks batting.
He was so good last inning. John Gibbons is going to let him hit here and then pitch in the 8th inning. Thought he might go to his bench to try and get some more add-on runs, but he feels like Hendricks' arm a little bit more important than his bat right now.
Yeah, I think what they're doing too is just trying to figure out what kind of effort they can get out of Hendricks the rest of the way, and looking forward to tomorrow's game.
This guy Rivera is rated the number 2 left-handed pitcher in this organization. I told you he came from Tampa, and he's a strikeout pitcher. Last season he had 50 strikeouts in 53 innings.
Hendricks fouls it off the front of the Nationals dugout. Marco Estrada, the starter, had a hit in his 3 plate appearances tonight, 1 for 3. How about Liam Hendricks? He takes ball 4. So he's aboard with 1 out.
He waves off the coat, Buck. How about that? That boy went out there for a coat, and Liam said, forget it. I'm fine.
Well, he's an Aussie. He's tough. He goes, I don't need a coat, mate. It's quite comfortable here. Jose Reyes with a mighty cut on the first fastball. Reyes has gone 1 for 4 tonight. He singled in the 7th. Got that rally started.
96, just down. Reyes has some power from the right-handed side of the batter's box. He's a switch hitter.
Two and 1 to the Blue Jays shortstop. We're in the 8th inning. Blue Jays have a 7-3 lead. Trying to split the doubleheader here this afternoon. They lost 2-0. This is the first game for Felipe Rivera. He closed out the 7th inning. He got Goins to ground out. Struck out Pilar to start the 8th. Reyes strikes out, 2 down.
They actually wanted that ball inside. Missed the spot, but he's got enough on that pitch to strike out Reyes. Second time that Jose has gone down swinging tonight. This guy's got a good arm. Very impressive.
2 strikeouts now for Rivera. This is Josh Donaldson. He's had a 2-hit night, 2 for 3 with a walk. Pretty good fastball.
He did not allow a run in spring training where they got a good look at him. And obviously made an impression on the management.
He came to the Washington Nationals along with the catcher Jose Lobachon in the trade for Nathan Carnes, who went down to Tampa Bay to start. So the Nationals, who were rich in starting pitching, added to their depth in the bullpen and behind the plate.
It's a trade that helped both organizations. Tampa Bay's got relief pitching everywhere.
They have so much relief pitching today, they designated Ernesto Frieri and put him on the DFA list. They have 10 days to sort out what they want to do with Frieri. Josh Donaldson behind 0-2. Well, that's a good fastball. How about Felipe Rivera striking out the side in the 8th? We go to the bottom of the 8th. Blue Jays lead at 7-3. Now time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zong.
Busy month of June for the Blue Jays at Rogers Center. Let's begin June 5th through 7th when the Houston Astros open up the month against the Blue Jays, and then some interleague action with the Miami Marlins and Giancarlo Stanton. The New York Mets come into town following that, and then it's the Baltimore Orioles with a little American League East action. On June 26th, it's the Texas Rangers and rookie Joey Gallo who homered tonight. Boston Red Sox come in to finish off the month of June. Go to BlueJays.com for tickets.
Should be a great month coming up, and we had mentioned it. Starting out this road trip, the Blue Jays are going to play 3 first-place clubs: the Twins, the Nationals, and the Astros. And the Astros, they have maintained their lead in the AL West, but now it's down to 4 games as the Angels have won 5 in a row.
Watch out for the Angels. Here they come. Houston's winning tonight. They're beating Baltimore.
Texas has won 3 in a row, and they're a game over 500. Tyler Moore, he's driven in a pair of runs, 2 of the 3 runs coming in off the bat of Tyler Moore. He had an RBI double in the 4th, sac fly in the 5th. Up the middle, Goins dives, makes a nice play, and throws out Moore. Boy, what a defender Ryan Goins has become. Whether it's shortstop or second base, he takes hits away on a nightly basis.
Defense is so important. It can save you so many runs. It can stop rallies. It can start rallies from start. And here's one right here, right back through the middle. This looks like a hit right over second base. But there's Ryan Goins. Full extension. Catches it in the glove and then fires to first base from his knees for the first out.
There's Colabella with a good stretch. He is making his first start at first base tonight.
You know, you can't underestimate the importance of defense. It just means so much in this game.
It's everything in this game. Final win. Just think about the mindset of Liam Hendricks. That ball goes past him. He's thinking it's a leadoff single.
Sure.
Turns around and he sees Goins stretched out on his belly behind second on the grass, throwing from his knees. 1 out.
Put a star by that play, and Liam Hendricks says, okay, 1 down, no problem. Got that leadoff hitter. Pitching and defense.
And breaking ball catches the outside corner. It's 1-2 to Clint Robinson. There's a line drive into center. Pilar, he gets a good break. Kevin's had another good night in the field to go along with his great night at the plate.
We got the best vantage point, I think, in the ballpark when those type of plays happen in the outfield. You can watch the break of the outfielder and Pilar. He gets such a good break on the ball. Went right in. He's played some good center field.
He has played well all season long, whether it's center or left. Tonight he's making his 36th start in center field. Danny Espinosa, the second baseman's got 0-for-3. A fly out and a couple of groundouts.
Little get me over curveball right there. Liam was telling me the other day that that's a pitch that he's trying to incorporate in what he throws to batters. Just a little get me over curveball, let him think about it, and then bust him in with the fastball and the slider.
Espinosa was late on that pitch, and Hendricks was quickly ahead 0-2.
You might even see him start to use, it's called a split change. It's more like a changeup with a split grip, like the split finger fastball. Steve Delabar has been showing it to him. He's been trying to work on it, trying to put that in what he throws, just to show the hitter a little something different.
Liam Hendricks strikes out Espinosa. 6 up, 6 down for Liam Hendricks, and he mixed in a walk as a hitter. Good outing for Liam Hendricks. Will go to the 9th. The Blue Jays have a 7-3 lead.
It goes June the 6th when the Blue Jays host the Astros at 1:07. Junior J outdoor program is back. Join us pregame outside Gate 10 for inflatables, activities, and lots of fun. After the game, kids 14 and under can run the bases just like the pros, like Russell Martin, who was the first Blue Jays catcher to steal home since a guy named Greg Zahn did it back in 2008. Guys, have either one of you ever been in a situation where you've even attempted to steal home as a pro?
No, never. Not me. How about you, Pat?
Stealing home? I don't remember, so I guess not. And look who it is, Casey Janssen, the former Blue Jay, in for his first action against his former team. Janssen's been in 4 games since coming back from the disabled list. He's had some shoulder problems at the beginning of this season. Here are Casey's numbers.
Casey had 90 saves pitching for the Blue Jays over his career. This is the first year he has pitched for anybody other than the Blue Jays. He started out in 2004 with the Blue Jays club at Auburn in the New York Penn League. Bautista singles over the shortstop in the left field. A leadoff single for Bautista. That's his first hit of the night. Comes off his former teammate.
Yeah, he has been battling some injuries so the last couple of years, so that velocity is starting to go down. In 2011, it was 92. And you can see the gradual decline in the miles per hour on the fastball. He gets by with exceptional command. Puts the ball where he needs to, changes speeds. Uses that curveball when he needs to. The plan when they signed him was for him to pitch the 8th inning for this team. Be the setup man for Drew Storm.
He might work his way back into that role eventually. Russell Martin. Russell is 0 for 3. Actually 0 for 4. He reached on a walk in the first. He did steal home in the front end of a double steal in the 7th inning. Chris Colabello went from first to second, and when the catcher threw home or threw to second, Martin came home.
That was a perfect time to use it. And the Blue Jays need those add-on runs. 4-run lead now. They need any kind of run so they can get a W.
They won the first game of this road trip 6-4 on Friday night, and then lost 2 tough ball games to the Twins Saturday and Sunday. Blue Jays just 9-18 on the road after losing the first game this afternoon. Casey Janssen came through the Blue Jays organization as a starter. Came to the big leagues in 2006. Made 17 starts. And then had shoulder problems. Missed the entire 2008 season. Worked his way back and pitched out of the bullpen and became the closer in 2012. He saved 22 in 12, 34 in 13, and 25 in 14.
Fighting injuries. Started last season on the disabled list for the Blue Jays at the beginning of the season. He doesn't do it like those typical closers that you have seen over the years, either with a trick pitch or a blazing fastball. He's got to move the ball around the strike zone. He's got to change speeds. Every pitch has a purpose when Casey's in there.
Yeah, they're all linked together. Like one is meant to set up the next, and everything is kind of a pattern. He thinks his way through at bats, that's for sure.
That last pitch was in and off the plate. So they might go down and away now.
And Martin fouls it into the catcher's glove. He strikes out. It's the first out of the top half of the night. Chris Colabello had an RBI single in the 7th. That extended his personal hit streak to 13 straight. Colabello drove in the 5th run for the Blue Jays. They would add a 6th and a 7th in the 7th inning. The Jays have scored 7 runs on 10 hits. Brett Cecil loosening up. Liam Hendricks, 2 perfect innings of relief. 6 up, 6 down with a couple of strikeouts. Jansen's velocity, again, as we showed, has declined the last couple of years. That last pitch, 87.
But you see how Colabello backed off that fastball up and in? All done for a purpose. So throw that little cutter down and away.
Casey Jansen was on the DL last year when Colabello had that good series against the Blue Jays. This is his first at bat against Jansen. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Colabello, what a play by Espinosa to Desmond back to first. What a double play. Danny Espinosa took a hit away from Colabello and turned it into an inning-ending double play. We'll go to the bottom of the ninth. The Blue Jays looking to split the doubleheader.
Tonight's game, we have Sportsnet Central with Ken and Ivanka. That's on Sportsnet East, Ontario, and West. Meanwhile, on Sportsnet Pacific, American League East fans may want to check in with the Yankees and the Mariners. Of course, we have a lot of Mariners fans, too, out west. It is CC Sabathia going up against Mike Montgomery, who makes his first Major League start. Buck.
Thank you very much. That's all coming up right after this game. And before we get to that, Fred Cecil is on to try to close things out. It's not a save situation. But the Blue Jays want Cecil into the ball game and get him ready for tomorrow as well.
Yeah, first time that Brett has pitched on this road trip. Here are his numbers in 18 games. 2 for 3. Just 3 save opportunities for Brett Cecil this season. Just 15 innings. So he needs some work. A couple other defensive changes for the Blue Jays here.
Danny Valencia comes in from left field to take over defensively at first base. And Ezequiel Carrera comes in to play left field. Chris Colabello is out of the lineup. Carrera started in center field in game 1. Jose Lobaton, the catcher, gone 1 for 3, had an RBI single in the 4th. Liam Hendricks, a terrific outing. 2 perfect innings with 2 strikeouts.
What a bridge he has been from Marco Estrada to Brett Cecil. 6 up, 6 down, a couple of punch outs, and a walk.
And a walk. He walked as a hitter. Yep. Strike 2 to the Nationals catcher. The appeal down to first to Victor Pazza.
Here's that big curveball. That's a finishing pitch for Brett. He can throw you that fastball, change up, but boy, that spike curveball has got great downward break action on it. And he finishes them off.
So with the strikeout, 1 down. Now it's time for a preview of what's coming up next on Sportsnet Central. Here's Ken Reed and Ivanka Osman. Thank you very much, Ken. That's all coming up right after this ball game, so make sure to stay tuned. This is Michael Taylor. Taylor doubled into the alley in right center his last time out. Wilmer Defoe out on the on-deck circle, youngster up from Double-A. Brett Cecil struck out Lobatel first out of the inning, and Taylor fouls it off. Blue Jays were shut out for the first time this season. They lost 2-0. Jordan Zimmerman improves to 5-2. He went 8 innings, shut out the Blue Jays on 6 hits, walked a batter, and struck out 4. And then Drew Storen, a clean inning of work to wrap it up, his 17th save. Nationals won game 1. Blue Jays are up 7-3 here in game 2. And Michael Taylor strikes out for the 6th time today. They had 3 strikeouts in game 1, 3 strikeouts in game 2.
It's that finishing breaking ball once again from Brett Cecil as he drops it in on Michael Taylor to finish off that at bat. You can't give up on it. That time down and away, good spot. 2 up, 2 down, 2 strikeouts. You know, for the Blue Jays, the reward after being shut out in game number 1, you get Max Scherzer.
Yeah.
You know, but to their credit, they have really come to play in the second game. They have grinded out at bats, and Kevin Pillar, he alone responsible for a big game tonight.
There's that good curveball. Cecil ahead quickly. Defoe's a switch hitter. He was just called up from Double-A. Brett Cecil with 2 strikeouts here in the 9th. It's not a save situation.
And after that last swing on a curveball, you better throw another one right here. Don't even give him a chance to hit the fastball.
He throws him a fastball and pops it up. Donaldson gives way to Reyes. The game is over, and the Blue Jays have split the doubleheader with the Nationals. Kevin Pillar with a big offensive game, a 3-hit game, his first multi-home run game of his career, and a career high 4 RBIs for Kevin Pillar.
We were just talking about the Blue Jays losing game 1, getting shut out, and the reward for that is they get Max Scherzer. And it could have been a long night, but the Blue Jays scratched and clawed and grinded out at bats and end up beating Scherzer, to their credit. So they have a chance to win the series tomorrow now.
Yeah, they sure do. And Mark Burley will start it for the Blue Jays. Big night for Kevin Pillar and the offense. They win at 7-3. Stay tuned. Yankees and Mariners on 1 and Pacific. Sportsnet Central coming up right now. Here's Ken and Ivanka. Thanks for watching.